America wasn't always what it is today. Imagine not being able to go anywhere or do anything without being judged or even hated. Imagine not even being able to use the same bathroom as someone else if your skin color wasn't the same. In a time like this, with so many disagreements between so many different people, we need to learn what helped shape America. I hope after listening to my speech, you'll understand that by working together, anything can be accomplished. During the time of black discrimination, rather than being violent, they chose to get their point across by peaceful protests. I've been studying the civil rights movement in my history class, and I found it very interesting how they went by these peaceful protests. Now, there were a lot of peaceful protests during this time. Today, I'll be talking about 3 of them: bus boycotts, marches, and sit-ins. The first peaceful protest I'm going to be talking about is bus boycotts. On December 1st, 1955, a woman named Rosa Parks refused to give her seat up to a white male, and therefore she was arrested. Now, this created outrage for the whole Montgomery black community. Therefore, they decided to stage a bus boycott. Now, previously, 80% of the whole black community had rode the bus. On the first day of the bus boycott, only 8 blacks rode the bus. Because of its success, they decided to stage a long-term bus boycott. So, for 381 days, they either walked or carpooled to get to work. Now, the bus system started to feel the effects, and eventually they decided that whites and blacks could sit wherever they wanted. The next peaceful protest I'll be talking about is marches. Now, there are 3 main marches. The first is the March on Washington, and this was where between 200 and 300,000 blacks and whites marched to the Washington Cap Monument, and they did this to show support for equal rights between whites and blacks. And this was where Martin Luther King gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. The next march is the March on Birmingham, and this was where countless blacks singing "We Will Overcome" marched the streets of Washington. They did this to show, or to get equal jobs for whites and blacks. Now, the police did not like this, so when people did that, they jailed them. And so the black community continued to do this until all the jails were filled up. And even little kids did this. And to keep them off the street, they used attack dogs, police brutality, and even high-pressured water hoses in order to keep them off the streets. But finally, the jails were all filled up, so they had to let them go, and they had to give them equal jobs. Now, the last march I'll be talking about is the March on Selma. And this was where Martin Luther King organized a march to the Selma, which was Montgomery's capital. Now, he did this to get equal voting rights, and it caught on national television police being arresting blacks and showing lots of police brutality towards them. And this sparked an outrage and showed just how bad police were back then, and it helped to get them equal voting rights. Now, the March on Selma helped to pass the Voting Rights Act. Now, the last peaceful protest I'll be talking about is sit-ins. On February 1st, 1960, 4 black males went into a cafe and were refused service. Because of this, they staged an all-day sit-in where they stayed there, and police could not do anything about it. This was caught on national television, and it helped other people to join the sit-ins. And after a week, over 300 people were sitting in. And if they were arrested, another black person would fill their spot. They did this until they integrated the lunch counters in all cafes so blacks and whites could all sit there. As you can see, bus boycotts, sit-ins, and marches were all very successful peaceful protests during the Civil Rights Movement. As Martin Luther King once said, "I have a dream." Him and many others helped to turn that dream into the America it is today. I'd like to give thanks to Christian Science Monitor, PBS.org, and History.com for the information presented in this speech. I'd also like to thank the audience for listening, and I hope that you understand by working together, anything is possible. Thank you. And this is my audience.